Rhododendron unionensis from Asia, and it's been here since the late 1920s. So it's an incredibly hardy, floriferous plant, and I recommend it to everyone who can use something like that. I think usually it's supposed to be a white flower, but Seamus O'Brien has asserted that this is, in fact, the true Rhododendron unionensis. This is Viburnum Burkwoodi, or Burkwoodii. It's a cross between Viburnum carlsii and Utili. And it was created by, there were two Burkwood brothers, and so that's why it's named Viburnum Burkwoodi. It's very fragrant, thanks to one of its parents, carlsii. And the fun thing about this, the story about this, is that this was a gift from Mr. Burkwood himself.
Wow.
So it's before it was even officially named, I think.
So when will it?
It's like tomorrow or the next
wow.
day. It's going to be sunny tomorrow. So the yellow-flowered magnolia in the field down there is Magnolia Butterflies. It's a cross of Magnolia acuminata, which is a very hardy form of a native magnolia, and an Asian magnolia called Magnolia denudata, which is known to be the most beautiful magnolia. So the good thing about this is it's hardy and it blooms early. So with yellow flowers, most of the Asian magnolias that bloom early are of Asian origin and don't have the hardiness of the Native American genes.
And the yellow was a rage for a while, right? I mean, it's not common, right?
No. It's, as I said, Magnolia acuminata, it's a form of Magnolia acuminata. It's a color selection of that. So we have, Mary Henry actually collected a Native American yellow form of the Magnolia acuminata, which was known to be the most yellow at that time. And this is just augmented with a little bit of Asian spice. But the color is and the form of the flower is spectacular.
Yeah, it is.
And what's so unplanned is this rhododendron is a form of Rhododendron Reticulatum, an Asian rhododendron. Obviously, this has been here since probably around 1930. Dr. Leidy thinks it's grown from seed, most likely given to her by the plant explorer named Rock, and because it's an unusual form. It's not the typical form of Reticulatum. But I was just reading about this plant because I wanted to have some information about it. So I was reading Mary Henry's notes about it, and she said that someone told her she should be growing this, so she grew it, and then it bloomed, and she thought, well, that's a garish magenta, and then she decided after a few years that she ended up really loving it. So that's kind of a cute story.
And it's funny, a little, the plant 2 or 3 years ago had a lot of vines on it, and a little work to unvine it, and it just prospers.
Well, don't you love the juxtaposition of the yellow and the
yes.
purple, magenta, I should say. So on the hill behind you, this is Opsis Pauciflora, and this also was covered with honeysuckle growing in the middle, and it was killing a lot of the branches. So if you could have seen the deadwood I took out of it and the honeysuckle, that's why it looks a little funny. But again,
it's opened up beautifully.
It'll we can cut back some more of the deadwood, but it'll be next year. It's going to be gorgeous. So Viburnum Burkwoodii, and you can, up close and personal. Iphion uniflorum. Argentina, Uruguay, that's that part of South America. So a lot of plants from South America don't necessarily do well here, but this thrives and it self-seeds. I think it's interesting, these are leucojums that Mary Henry planted, and they're so much more attractive than the ones I planted up there. So just because things are bigger doesn't mean they're better.
But they are both
the same. Yeah. But these are so much more delicate.
So Susan, do you divide these plants so they just naturally travel?
Yes, so these I don't think these travel very much. The Iphion definitely travels. Claytonia, I don't know if any of the Claytonia were planted. And I've actually wondered whether patches of daffodils, if they aren't divided, do they shrink over time or do some of them? I don't actually know.
The snowdrops actually travel with water sometimes. Like you'll see them in stream beds and where
Really?
there's blankets of them.
Oh, that surprises me.
Well, they get washed out and washed down.
Sure, here's the trillium in the middle of the grass. And you'll see them in the middle of the grass up there.
So how many types of trillium are at Henry?
I'd like to invite someone like John Geyer over to identify and list them, because Mary Henry had 52 varieties and species of trillium.
Wow.
That includes different color variations, because she was very interested in the colors. So I imagine that most of those are probably still here. There's probably been a little bit of a loss, but some of these trillium have expanded exponentially.
Are they prone to deer graze and things like that?
Supposedly, but we have patches all over, little outcroppings of trillium all over, that the deer just they just haven't found, I guess.
Those are trillium?
Yes, there's some, most of the white flowered trillium up there are the Trillium grandiflorum. They are fairly early blooming. The yellow ones that you see blooming are Trillium luteum. I was going to say earlier, John Geyer wants us to do a study of how trillium and the lesser celandine cohabitate.
Because it doesn't appear that they're being choked out by.
It doesn't appear that way because this goes dormant when the trillium are beginning to set seed, but they've already done their flowering for the next year. They've already got their food for the next year.
So when you say dormant, the leaf matter even goes away, right?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, yes.
So that's the deal. Like that's why I think people accept it, because it's not like the leaves stay,
I don't think so.
right?
No, they don't.
But this is a testament, Susan, to like the more you clear, the more you see.
But this area, so this is the native ginger that's coming up right here. This whole patch is native ginger, with the exception of the interloper there.
It's hard to even pick up the trilliums sometimes. They're almost like camouflaged in there.
Yes.
That's why the deer can't find
Until
it.
you see a great big patch like that.
Yeah.
But the Mertensia is just beginning to start blooming. And the Mertensia is fun to look at because some of the buds are pink, some are purple, but they'll open blue. Or some of them open pink and some of them open white.
Oh, they really
Are
extend.
trilliums in the trade? Are they?
Oh yes, you can buy trillium. You might have to go to a specialty nursery, but for sure.
You can buy them at the Henry
but-
Foundation plant sale.
Yes.
But Henry, trilliums are a significant plant here, in a way that trilliums aren't significant in some other arboretum settings, right?
I think it was a group of plants that Mary Henry specialized in. Yes, she loved them, and when she concentrated on a particular genus, she wanted to get all the species of that genus that she could. So that's it. And because she found a lot, then it ended up being a lot of different species and varieties. But she did the same thing with the genus of Magnolia. She wanted, and she did, collect all 6, or whether you consider it 6 or 9 species and varieties of Magnolias native to North America. She had the first documented collection of Magnolias native to North America.
So what we see here is a mixture of different things. Like, so there's these. Are these mayaples up there?
No, actually, this is Thalictrum. I'm sorry. This is Cimicifuga americana, which blooms in July and August. This blooms 3 weeks after the other native Cimicifuga.
So those
The
are
other ones.
those are the plants
Racemosa,
with
I
the
think.
white stalk.
Yeah, so these will have a long stem, sometimes over my head, with little fairy bells at the top
Right.
of the spike, which are spectacular. Again, these are not eaten by the deer.
And this area, you cleared this area for 2 years now.
Yes,
and-
with a lot of help.
But you took out a lot of growth that would inhibit this, right? I mean,
Yes,
these plants.
a lot of
Because
Haleasias.
it didn't look like this before.
No, Haleasias and
It is looking better.
mostly
Yeah, of course.
Haleasias. And so you see the Mertensia is self-seeding all over the place. And if you get up in certain patches over there, there's 2 different kinds of Dicentra, which are a little Native American spring ephemeral.
It's amazing what's here. You know, when you go to Chanticleer and it's very groomed and it's very, orderly. But here, if you look hard and you know something about plants, or you have somebody who knows something about plants telling you, you can experience something that you really don't see in other places in this form.
I think this is the essence of the intent of having a garden that is, we might label it a wild garden, but it's actually very carefully created. It's not that things have gone wild. Things are selected, planted, and those things are encouraged just like we've done with this Cimicifuga, so that you create a scenario that looks natural because you've allowed the natural processes to go ahead. You've just done some selective editing, which is what I think gardeners like to do that, right? But I love it when, if you go up there, there's the squirrel corn, the Dicentra. There are 2 different kinds of Dicentra up there, and you just see them wrap themselves around a rock, and
Yeah, there's something about the rocks that actually bring forth, make some of the plants look even more special.
Right, the backdrop.
I wonder if it has to do with the scale. You know, it's a like intermediate between the great big trees and the ground.
So the important thing is there is pruning. Taking too much of a good thing out is not a bad idea. So, like some of these trees, Halaceas, that people would love to have in their yard, we have too many here, and they have to be harvested. I mean, in order for this to happen, because it didn't always look like this. You know?
No, you have to edit. It's just a process of editing. So in fact, actually, a couple of weeks ago, I was in here. What's so nice about this time of the year is there are no bugs. And I was very aware in the past few years that this particular plant was starting to grow into the path of the cars. And so, because you can see the stems at this time of the year before they leaf out, you actually can figure out, oh, well, this, you know, you can look at the stems that are black or darker than, like, you know, this is is a relatively new branch, and this isn't. So you can cut this all the way back to encourage growth at the base, and you can get rid of the parts that are interfering. And it's not just interfering with the cars. You figure that the essence of, or the source of energy is at the base of a plant. So if you cut back shrubs like this that you know will grow more stems from the base, then you'll get more energy coming out, and it'll help prolong this plant. If you just let it accumulate these, sometimes what might be get too much shade, and then it'll die. I just don't think that's so good.
And I think a common mistake people make is they sometimes leave the old wood. You know, they prune by cutting off the new growth, and they leave the old wood, which is less desirable, right?
Yes, because you can see that someone's come along here at some point in the life of this plant, and you know, this should be cut all the way back to the base instead of here, because this will only encourage growth out here, which is already in the driveway.
Right.
So
right.
It'll be, but you see all these, you know, all this light brown colored stems, they're all new. They're all new. So there's more work to be done.
But this is the right time, because you can also see vines that you can see invasives that they disappear once all these
It's
leaf
really
out.
hard in the middle of summer. You just think, I'll get to that, but it's just not. But anyway, this is actually the beginnings of the flower. You can start to see the flower forming here. So this will bloom in a few weeks. This plant is Calycanthus floridus. Pink flowers, fragrant. I thought it probably have
So Susan, a plant like this that looks out of scale to me, but am I wrong, or is this too big for its location?
I think in the ideal world, you have a really good point. I think in the ideal world, if you could put it somewhere else, that would be great. Because again, I'm always cutting back the branches that come into the driveway that hit a car. And so if you look at this, you know, from here, you know, there's a beautiful growth over here, but this looks, it's not as pretty. So, yes.
But once again, the right way is to get down to the base, take out the older wood.
Yes. Yes. You can. This is an Asian Coralopsis, so it's related to the other Coralopsis up there. It's Coralopsis vechiana. It has particularly long inflorescences, which are of course past, but you get the idea. So these little bells hanging down, they're just beautiful. So it bloomed about 3 weeks ago.
Would this have been a plant Mary collected?
Well, it's Asian, so she didn't collect any plants in Asia. So if it's an Asian plant, you know she bought it or it was a gift. And this, I believe, was purchased in the first 3 years she was living here because she lined the driveway with some of the first plants. These plants along the edges were, say, 1927 to 1940.
That's remarkable. When you think about
By and large, yeah. Have you been up there to look at those trillium?
No, I have not.
You don't have to film this, but would you like to just look at it?
Yeah.
Trillium.
It is amazing.
These are created by the creatures that roam around here.
And by that you mean it gets dug up by something, or
Little animals will eat the seed pods of a trillium somewhere, and that's how things. So ants will spread them, deer,
wow.
Whatever else eats trillium seeds. But that's how things. A lot of times, why you would see something in the middle of that person's yard. There's a patch out there that, but it's. That's a pretty stunning plant. These are planted by the little animals. And you can hardly walk up here without stepping on the floor.
I've never even noticed it.
No, you wouldn't.
Oh, that's something else.
And then look at this right here.
Wow. This sort of freaks me out, because if you're gonna weed and stuff, you gotta know what you're doing.
Oh yeah, watch your step, because there are a lot of things around here.
No more weeding.
I mean, there are a lot of stumps and rocks is what I'm more worried about.
But-
you're tripping on. Now, I know that there are. So if you have a population of a certain type of trillium, you might have some color variations. As I said, Mary Henry was interested in that. So, but I would have to get someone like John Geyer to tell me, is that yellow trillium a different, is it trillium luteum, or is it a color variant of the other trillium?
Oh, I see the yellow one up there.
Because every now and then you'll
Oh,
see
right.
in a patch you'll see yellow trillium.
So it could just be a genetic throwout type thing?
I think so. See, some of these have just started flowering. Oh, actually, these are, so these are different from these, right? Or are they, yeah, they look, well,
So Susan, what is the right maintenance program for this, with these trilliums all through here? Is it, should more be taken away?
well.
You know, like these saplings and things?
Well, this is a really good question, because I've what I took out a lot a few years ago were there were a lot of briars in here, but the briars protected the trillium. So but you definitely don't want. I don't want vines in here. I don't want the honeysuckle, and I don't want the porcelainberry vine. So I think those are really important to keep out. But I think that what I think we should try now is to leave the lindera, because the lindera is a native shrub. It's a host for the swallowtail butterfly, which we have a lot of. But the Lindera is it's low, and it's very happy in this type of a setting. And as you see, most of these are Lindera, and so it I think might help protect the trillium.
So most of these saplings are Lindera.
Yes. So but I would take out anything like that. You know, if it's an invasive plant that is non-native, I would take those out. Like the Viburnum, if it's a Viburnum from Asia, I would take it out.
And Alicias.
I would take out Helicias. One of the questions I have is, like there's a kind of but anyway, this is a different shape, quite a different shaped leaf trillium.
It is.
Kind of looks like Jack in the Pulpit.
There's some, anyway, just so you know, there's a patch of them.